every morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. Buddha. Have you ever felt like life has gone completely silent? Like you're surrounded by noise, yet nothing truly reaches you? Like you're just going through the motions, feeling empty, lost and disconnected from everything that once gave you meaning? Maybe you're exhausted from trying, or maybe you've simply forgotten what it feels like to be whole. If this resonates with you, know that you're not alone. And more importantly, this isn't the end of your story. In fact, Buddhism teaches that this very emptiness, this space of silence and stillness, can become the foundation for something new. In this video, we'll explore 7 powerful lessons from Buddhism that can help you rebuild yourself from nothing. These aren't just teachings, they are tools to help you rediscover clarity, peace, and strength when everything feels broken. Sometimes it's in our darkest moments that we find the light we were always searching for. Stay with me, because this could be the beginning of your most meaningful transformation yet. Lesson 1. Embrace emptiness. In the heart of Buddhist philosophy lies a concept that often evokes confusion, discomfort, or even fear in the modern world: emptiness. But this emptiness is not the bleak, hollow feeling many of us associate with despair or isolation. It is something far deeper, far more sacred. Emptiness, as understood in Buddhism, is not a void to be feared, but a spacious openness in which transformation becomes possible. It is the realization that nothing in this world, no thought, no emotion, no experience, is fixed or permanent. Everything is in a constant state of flux, interconnected and impermanent, flowing through the vast river of change. When we feel sad, broken, or completely emptied out by life, we often believe that something has gone terribly wrong. We fight against the feeling. We seek to fill the silence with noise, to numb the pain with distraction, or to run from the void as if it were a threat. But Buddhism gently invites us to do the opposite, to pause, to breathe, and to sit with the emptiness. Because within this space where everything seems to have fallen away, something incredibly powerful can begin to unfold. Emptiness clears away the clutter of illusion. It strips us of the things we thought defined us, the identities we clung to, the attachments we believed would never fade, and in doing so, it presents us with a blank canvas, one we rarely encounter unless life forces us to let go. The teachings remind us that it is in this place of silence and stillness where we can finally hear the truth beneath all the mental noise. It is in the empty space, uncluttered by expectations, roles, or ego, that we come face to face with our most honest self. And although this can feel raw and frightening, it is also incredibly freeing. For the first time, we are no longer held hostage by who we think we're supposed to be, or what the world told us we must become. We are simply here in this moment, breathing, feeling, existing. And that is enough. This is where healing truly begins. Not when we escape our sadness, but when we allow ourselves to lean into it with full awareness. Not when we rush to fix ourselves, but when we realize there is nothing wrong with who we are right now. Emptiness in this light is not a place of absence. It is a place of potential. It is the soil in which new life can take root. When we surrender to this space without judgment, we allow the natural intelligence of the heart to guide us forward. We begin to rebuild, not from ego, not from fear, but from presence, clarity, and acceptance. So if your life feels stripped bare, if you find yourself sitting in silence, unsure of what comes next, know that this moment is not your downfall. It is your turning point. Embrace the emptiness, not as a sign of defeat, but as an invitation to awaken. Because from the deepest emptiness, the most beautiful transformations can emerge. And in this sacred space of stillness, you don't have to be anything except open. Lesson 2. Accept suffering as a part of life. One of the most fundamental teachings in Buddhism, and perhaps the most misunderstood, is the first noble truth. Dukkha exists. This word dukkha is often translated as suffering, but its meaning runs much deeper than just pain. It encompasses the full range of human dissatisfaction, everything from grief, loss, and heartache to the quiet, aching emptiness that lingers even when nothing seems to be wrong. It's the subtle anxiety beneath success, the restlessness in pleasure, the longing that remains unfulfilled no matter what we achieve. Buddhism doesn't deny suffering. It faces it directly and teaches us that to live is inevitably to suffer. But this is not a sentence of despair. It is a call to awareness. In our modern culture, we are constantly taught to avoid suffering at all costs. We are bombarded with messages that encourage us to stay busy, chase happiness, fix every flaw, and numb every discomfort. We treat pain as a problem to be solved, an enemy to be defeated. But in doing so, we create an even deeper suffering, the suffering of resistance. What we resist persists. What we run from follows us. And what we try to bury eventually rises in other more painful forms. Buddhist wisdom offers a radical and compassionate alternative. Instead of fighting your suffering, accept it. Not with passivity, but with presence. Not with defeat, but with deep, courageous acknowledgement. The moment we stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" our relationship with pain begins to shift. We begin to see that suffering is not a punishment, but a natural part of the human experience. Everyone suffers. Everyone breaks. Everyone feels lost sometimes. When we recognize this, suffering becomes less isolating. It becomes a bridge that connects us to all beings. Accepting suffering doesn't mean giving up. It means allowing yourself to be human. It means recognizing that sadness, grief, disappointment, and heartbreak are not flaws to be corrected, but invitations to grow in wisdom and compassion. When we sit with our suffering, when we allow ourselves to feel fully without judgment, we soften. We develop empathy. We begin to understand not only our own pain, but the pain of others. And in that shared understanding, healing begins. There is an immense freedom in no longer needing to be okay all the time. When you accept suffering as a natural rhythm of life, like the changing of the seasons or the passing of a storm, you stop clinging to the illusion of constant happiness. You begin to see beauty in imperfection, meaning in struggle, and peace in simply being present with what is. So, if your heart is heavy right now, if your days feel long and your nights restless, don't rush to escape. Instead, breathe into the discomfort. Sit with your sorrow like you would sit with a dear friend. Let it speak to you. Let it soften you. Let it show you that in your suffering, you are not broken. You are awakening. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your teacher. And in time, it will guide you not only back to yourself, but towards something deeper. Understanding, resilience, and the quiet, powerful truth that you were never alone. Lesson 3. Practice mindful awareness. In a world that constantly pulls us in 1,000 directions, notifications, responsibilities, expectations, fears, there is a quiet power in simply being present. Mindful awareness, or sati in Buddhist tradition, is the practice of returning again and again to the present moment, not with force, but with gentleness. It is the art of truly inhabiting your life, breath by breath, without trying to change, judge, or escape anything that arises. It is not about controlling the mind, but learning how to observe it, just as it is. So often we live in the past, replaying old mistakes or grieving things we've lost. Or we project ourselves into the future, anxious about what may come, always trying to solve problems that haven't even arrived. Our minds become noisy, cluttered, and restless, while the present moment, the only moment that truly exists, slips through our fingers unnoticed. And yet, it is only in this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, that healing can truly begin. Mindfulness is not reserved for monks on mountaintops or long hours of silent meditation. It can begin right here, in the midst of your ordinary life. It begins when you pause long enough to feel your feet touching the ground, when you notice the rise and fall of your breath, when you observe a thought without believing it or chasing it down. It happens when you drink tea and actually taste it, when you listen to someone without already preparing your response, when you feel your emotions, not as enemies, but as waves moving through you. Practicing mindfulness is about stepping out of the autopilot mode we so often fall into. It's the shift from doing to being, from reacting to responding, from surviving to noticing. And in this sacred noticing, you begin to see clearly for the first time, not just the world around you, but the landscape of your own inner life. You begin to realize how many of your reactions are habits, how many of your fears are imagined, how much of your suffering comes not from what is happening, but from the story you're telling yourself about it. Through mindful awareness, the mind begins to settle, not because you force it into silence, but because you learn to stop feeding the chaos. You learn to observe your thoughts like clouds drifting through the sky, knowing they are not you. You are not your anxiety. You are not your sadness. You are the awareness behind them. And once you realize that, a great peace begins to grow inside you. Quiet at first, but unmistakably alive. Mindfulness teaches us that we don't need to escape our lives to find peace. We need only to arrive fully within them. Even if what we find in the moment is pain or sorrow, by bringing gentle attention to it, we create space. And in that space, transformation becomes possible. Emotions can move, thoughts can dissolve, the body can rest, the heart can open. So if you find yourself overwhelmed, lost in thought, or disconnected from your own experience, return to your breath. Return to the sensation of your body, to the sights and sounds around you. Anchor yourself in the truth that this moment is enough. You are enough. Awareness is not something you have to create. It is something you return to, again and again. And each time you do, you are not falling behind. You are waking up. Because ultimately, mindfulness is not about fixing yourself. It is about remembering who you are beneath the noise, whole, aware, and already complete. Lesson 4. Let go of attachment. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is a root cause of suffering that appears again and again. Attachment or clinging. It's the thread that winds itself around nearly every form of human pain. Not because desire is wrong, but because we often confuse desire with possession. We don't just want love. We want to hold it, fix it in place, and guarantee that it won't leave. We don't just want success. We want assurance that we will never lose it, that it will define us forever. And when life, in its impermanent and ever-shifting rhythm, inevitably moves, changes, and takes things from us, we are left devastated. The pain we feel is real, but often it is the result of our refusal to let go. Attachment is not simply about things or people. It is also the attachment to how things should be, to who we think we are, to the beliefs we've built our identity upon. It is the grasping at certainty in an uncertain world. We hold on to ideas of permanence in a universe that is, by nature, fluid and impermanent. We cling to our youth, to our roles in society, to relationships, to routines, to self-images carefully constructed over years. And because all things are destined to change, because loss, transition, and transformation are woven into the very fabric of existence, attachment inevitably leads to suffering. This is not punishment. It is simply the nature of things. But to let go of attachment is not to withdraw from life or to become indifferent. It is not about giving up or becoming emotionally detached. On the contrary, it is about engaging with life more fully, but without fear. When we release our grip, we don't stop loving. We love more deeply because we are no longer loving out of need or control. We are no longer trying to force permanence onto things that were never meant to stay the same. To let go is to trust that life will unfold as it must, that we can meet it with grace instead of resistance, that we can love without clinging and grieve without collapsing. This is one of the most courageous practices in Buddhism because it goes against the instinctual pull of the human mind. Letting go feels like a kind of death, the death of certainty, of ego, of control. But what arises in its place is something far more powerful: liberation. When we are no longer bound by the desperate need to possess or define our experiences, we open ourselves to their beauty in its rawest, most authentic form. We begin to taste the sweetness of each moment, not because it will last, but precisely because it won't. And that awareness turns even the smallest experiences into sacred ones. Think of the autumn tree. Its leaves fall not in resistance, but in harmony with the season. It does not mourn the leaves that once were, nor cling to what must go. It lets them drift to the earth in graceful surrender, knowing that in time, new growth will come. This is the wisdom of non-attachment. It is the understanding that everything has its time, its arrival, its unfolding, and its passing. And that peace comes not from holding on, but from learning how to bow to each phase with dignity and acceptance. We can begin this practice in the smallest of ways, by noticing the urge to control a conversation, by softening our expectations of how others should behave, by loosening our grip on the past we keep replaying in our minds. We can watch a feeling rise and fall without chasing it. We can allow space between stimulus and reaction. We can meet discomfort with breath rather than tension. And in each of these small moments of letting go, we begin to train the heart to release its attachments, not out of apathy, but out of love. Letting go is not easy. It asks you to sit in uncertainty, to stand in the fire of impermanence without flinching. It asks you to shed layer after layer of ego, to trust that who you are is not dependent on what you have, who you're with, or how life appears on the surface. It is a lifelong unfolding, a constant returning to the truth that nothing was ever truly yours to keep. And that, paradoxically, in realizing this, you begin to truly live. You begin to experience joy, not as something you own, but as something you flow with. You begin to see grief not as an enemy, but as a teacher of the heart's depth. And you begin to love not from fear of losing, but from the freedom of presence. So if your hands are tired from holding on, if your heart is weary from clinging to something that no longer nourishes your spirit, this is your moment to begin again. Not by cutting yourself off from what you feel, but by honoring the impermanence in all things, by recognizing that the beauty of life lies in its passing, and the peace you seek has always lived in the letting go. Lesson 5, cultivate compassion. In the heart of Buddhist wisdom, nestled beside mindfulness and wisdom, there is a light that shines just as brightly, karuna or compassion. It is not mere kindness, not fleeting sympathy or sentimental emotion. Compassion in its truest form is a radical force. It is the brave and boundless willingness to open your heart to the suffering of others and to your own. It is the decision again and again to remain soft in a world that often teaches hardness, to care even when it hurts, to love even when it's not returned, to meet pain not with avoidance, but with presence. In the depths of sadness or emptiness, when life feels cold and hollow, cultivating compassion can feel unnatural, even impossible. But it is precisely in these moments, when your own heart has been broken open, that compassion begins to take root in its most authentic form. You see, once you've been to the bottom, once you've felt despair, once you've cried out in the silence of night and heard no answer, then you begin to understand something sacred. You begin to see that your pain is not separate from the pain of others. That suffering is not a flaw in you. It is part of being human. And suddenly, the walls between yourself and the rest of the world begin to soften. Compassion begins with yourself. This is the step we so often overlook. We extend care to everyone around us, but speak to ourselves with cruelty. We offer forgiveness to others, but shame to our own hearts. Yet Buddhist teachings are clear. The seed of compassion must first be planted in your own soul. You cannot offer water from an empty cup. To cultivate true karuna, you must sit with your suffering, not as an enemy, but as a wounded child in need of your tenderness. You must hold your own heart the way you would hold a friend's, gently, patiently, without judgment. This self-compassion is not indulgent or selfish. It is strength. It is the soil from which your care for others will grow, not from obligation, but from a deep recognition of shared humanity. The Buddha did not teach compassion as a virtue to aspire to. He taught it as a necessary practice for liberation. When we truly see the suffering of others, not as something separate from ourselves, but as something we understand intimately, compassion arises naturally. It transcends labels, identities, and divisions. It does not ask who is worthy. It simply responds. In cultivating compassion, we begin to listen more deeply, not only to words, but to silence, to what is not said. We begin to soften our assumptions about others, realizing that everyone we meet is carrying burdens we cannot see. The person who seems angry may be grieving. The one who withdraws may be aching with loneliness. The one who lashes out may be desperately afraid. Compassion doesn't mean you allow others to harm you. It means you recognize that harm often comes from pain, and that the cycle of suffering can only be broken through understanding, not retaliation. And just as compassion connects us to others, it also breaks down the illusion of separation within ourselves. You may find parts of yourself you've long rejected, your fear, your jealousy, your vulnerability, and instead of pushing them away, compassion invites you to hold them, to see them not as enemies, but as cries for healing. Slowly, you begin to integrate, to feel whole, not because you are free from flaws, but because you've made peace with your humanness. As you cultivate compassion, your life becomes a vessel for healing. Your presence becomes medicine, not because you fix others, but because your presence says, I see you, I hear you, you are not alone. And that sometimes is enough to change a life. There will be days when compassion feels far away, when your heart feels closed, tired, or numb. In those moments, don't force it. Just notice, be present. Even the intention to be compassionate is a seed. Keep watering it. Keep returning. Breathe into your chest. Place your hand over your heart. Say gently, may I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the care I need. From that wellspring, compassion will bloom again. Because in the end, compassion is not a feeling. It's a way of being. It's a quiet revolution. It's choosing to walk through the world with an open heart, no matter how many times it's been broken. It's the understanding that even in the deepest sadness, there is something inside you still capable of love. And when you offer that love, softly, fiercely, unconditionally, you become part of the healing of the world. Lesson 6. Accept impermanence. There is one truth the Buddha returned to again and again, one that sits at the heart of all suffering and all liberation: the law of impermanence. Everything changes. Everything arises, stays for a while, and fades. No experience, no feeling, no identity, no possession, no life situation. No moment, however beautiful or painful, can last forever. And though we hear this, though we nod in agreement when we speak of change being the only constant, the truth is that deep inside, we still resist it. We grieve when things end, we fear the unknown, and we suffer. Not because life changes, but because we believed it wouldn't. When your heart feels heavy, when sadness and emptiness press down on your chest, it may be because you are standing in the rubble of something that once felt solid. A relationship, a dream, a sense of self. Maybe something you once held close has slipped through your fingers, and no matter how tightly you clench your fists, it will not return. In these moments, it feels like the ground beneath you is dissolving. But this is not the end. It is the essence of life unfolding. It is impermanence revealing itself not as an enemy, but as a quiet teacher, asking, can you let go of what was and make space for what will become? Accepting impermanence doesn't mean we stop feeling pain. It means we stop fighting it. It means we allow ourselves to grieve the endings, to mourn what is lost, without becoming trapped in the belief that something has gone wrong. The flower that blooms only for a day is not less beautiful. The sunset that fades is not a failure. And your sorrow, too, is not a mistake. It is a natural human response to the flow of change. But if we allow ourselves to truly see this moment, not through the lens of what was or what should be, but simply as it is, we begin to open ourselves to a profound kind of peace. Impermanence is not just about loss. It's also about possibility. Nothing stays the same, which means that even the darkest night cannot last. Even the most painful emotions, when allowed to move freely, will shift. Even the version of you that feels broken today is already in the process of becoming something new. The storm does not last forever. The winter always softens into spring. This truth may not erase your sorrow, but it offers you something deeper than comfort. It offers you perspective. It reminds you that you are not stuck. You are not finished. You are in motion. This understanding begins to change the way you live. When you truly grasp that everything is temporary, you stop taking moments for granted. You look more closely. You listen more deeply. You begin to love more openly, not because love will last forever, but because you understand how precious it is. You become less attached to outcomes, less rigid in your plans. You begin to live with gentle hands and a soft heart, knowing that nothing is promised and that, in itself, is what makes everything sacred. Impermanence also frees you. It frees you from identities that no longer serve you, from mistakes that have haunted you, from pain that once defined you. You realize that you are not frozen in time. You are not the sum of your worst moments. Like the moon, you have phases. Like the ocean, you are always in motion. The person you were yesterday is not the person you must be today. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to begin again, not just once, but 1,000 times. Still, this truth is not easy. It asks us to be present with endings, to say goodbye to versions of ourselves we once cherished, to let go of certainty, and to trust that even when things fall apart, something new is always on its way. Not in spite of the breaking, but because of it. The lotus flower grows only in the mud. The stars are only visible in the night sky. There is beauty in transition, grace in surrender, and wisdom in decay. Life is not a fixed sculpture. It is a flowing river. You cannot step into the same current twice. And yet, in its movement, you will always find newness. So, if you are holding on to something that has already passed, if you are aching for something to return to how it used to be, pause. Breathe. Place your hand over your heart and remind yourself, this too shall pass. And when it does, I will still be here. I will still be breathing. I will still be becoming. Impermanence does not mean that nothing matters. On the contrary, it means everything matters. Every word, every smile, every moment of connection. Every breath you take is unique. Every sunrise, a once-in-a-lifetime event. Every person you love is a fleeting miracle. Accepting that nothing lasts forever does not make life less meaningful. It fills it with urgency, depth, and reverence. Let impermanence soften you, not harden you. Let it awaken your gratitude instead of your fear. Let it teach you that you don't need to cling, because nothing truly beautiful can be owned, and nothing truly meant for you will miss you. All you must do is keep your heart open, keep flowing with the river of life, and when the moment arrives, and it will, when the sadness lifts, when the fog begins to part, you'll see. You did not lose yourself. You were being shaped. You were being prepared. And something new is already waiting on the other side. Lesson 7. Rebuild yourself with mindful presence. There is a silence that follows collapse. A silence so deep it doesn't echo. A stillness that feels foreign, almost frightening. After the storm has passed, after the loss has settled, after your identity has unraveled, there comes a strange space, a void where the past no longer holds you and the future has not yet formed. It is here, in this tender, uncertain space, that the practice of sati, or mindful presence, becomes not just a tool, but a way to be reborn. In Buddhist tradition, sati is the gateway to liberation. It is the practice of full awareness, of anchoring yourself in this present moment with clarity, curiosity, and compassion. But it is not a passive awareness. It is not simply watching life pass by. It is an active, intimate relationship with your inner world and outer reality, a courageous turning toward all that is, no matter how painful, fragmented, or unfinished it may be. When your life has been stripped down to its raw foundations, when the scaffolding of who you thought you were collapses, mindfulness becomes your compass. It teaches you how to exist again, not as a reaction to your pain, not as a performance for the world, but as a gentle, conscious response to life as it unfolds. And rebuilding begins here, not with fixing, not with rushing to reassemble what was, but with learning how to simply be with what is. You sit, you breathe, you notice, you allow the waves of sadness to move through you without pushing them away. You hold the ache in your chest without trying to numb it. You observe the restless mind with soft curiosity, not judgment. And in doing so, something subtle but profound happens. The war inside you begins to quiet. The constant urge to escape, to distract, to fight reality, it begins to dissolve. Not because you forced it, but because you gave it space to be seen. Mindful presence teaches you how to meet yourself again, not as the shattered version you fear, but as someone worthy of tenderness. It invites you to see beauty in the smallest of things, a beam of sunlight across your bed, the steam rising from your morning tea, the rhythm of your breath like a tide returning home. These ordinary details become sacred. They tether you to life. They remind you that you are not lost, you are alive, and that is no small thing. You don't have to rebuild your life all at once. In fact, you can't. Healing does not arrive on command. Clarity does not come on a schedule. What you can do is return to this moment again and again, like the ocean returning to shore. You rebuild by presence, by showing up, by becoming conscious of your steps, your choices, your emotions, your needs, by feeling everything fully, not because it's pleasant, but because it's real. And in that presence, you begin to reclaim your agency. You begin to act not from fear, not from old patterns or unconscious wounds, but from awareness. You learn what nourishes you and what drains you. You begin to choose truth over comfort, clarity over noise, alignment over approval. Your life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you participate in moment by moment, breath by breath. Presence does not mean passivity. It does not mean you stop dreaming, building, growing. It means you no longer chase those things as an escape from yourself. It means you create from wholeness, not from lack, from stillness, not from panic, from love, not from fear. And in that space, your life begins to shape itself, not as a copy of the past, not as a reaction to pain, but as something entirely new, something truer. This is the path of true rebuilding. It's not about going back to who you were. It's about remembering who you are beneath everything you've been through. Presence reveals the parts of you that are still whole, still sacred, still pulsing with quiet power. It teaches you to hold your pain without being consumed by it, to let joy return without clinging to it, to meet life as it comes with open hands and a steady gaze. And as you continue this practice, gently, imperfectly, you begin to notice the subtle architecture of a new life forming. Not necessarily louder or brighter, but more aligned, more authentic. Relationships deepen, intentions sharpen. Peace arises, not because the chaos ends, but because you are no longer running from it. You've made peace with the mess. You've learned how to breathe in the ruins. And from that breath, something new is born. So if you are in the darkness now, unsure of how to begin again, begin here. Begin with your breath, with your body, with your gaze resting on a leaf, a flame, a ripple in a puddle. Begin with your senses. Begin with the truth of this moment, however imperfect. Trust that nothing more is required right now. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are in the sacred space between endings and beginnings, and your presence is the bridge. Let this be your mantra. I don't have to be anything else right now. I only need to be here. And in being here, you will find your way. You will rebuild, not in haste, not in fear, but in wisdom, in stillness, in truth. Conclusion: the journey inward, from emptiness to awakening. So if you've made it this far, take a moment to pause, not just to reflect, but to recognize the quiet strength it takes to sit with these truths. In a world that rushes to escape pain, you have chosen to look inward, to explore the silence, to witness your own emptiness not as a void to be feared, but as the sacred space where healing begins. You've walked through the heart of Buddhist wisdom, not as abstract philosophy, but as lived experience. You've embraced emptiness not as nothingness, but as openness. You've faced suffering without turning away, accepted impermanence with grace, and remembered that everything you need is already within you. You've seen that you don't have to return to the person you once were. You are allowed to change, to outgrow, to begin again. Maybe you're still grieving. Maybe you're still lost. That's okay. This journey isn't about fixing. It's about awakening. It's about coming home to yourself piece by piece, breath by breath. From stillness, from presence, from truth. You're not here to chase meaning. You're here to create it through your awareness, through your choices, through your willingness to be fully alive, even in the midst of sorrow. Let this be your reminder. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are simply standing at the edge of a new chapter. A chapter that doesn't demand perfection or certainty, only honesty and presence. Let go of who you think you should be. Honor who you are right now. And trust deeply that even in your quietest moments, life is still unfolding through you. This is your rebirth, not in one sudden leap, but in 1,000 gentle steps, each one rooted in awareness, compassion, and the courage to begin again. So breathe. Come back to this moment, and remember, from nothing, everything begins.